This is NDTV. And you're watching NDTV Prime.
Creative ad agencies are known across the globe as one of the best employers when it comes to job satisfaction or fun work environment. So if you are bored of doing a 9-to-5 job or are just starting out your career, then perhaps advertising can be your option. Hello and welcome, you're watching Heads Up, and tonight on the show, we are taking you inside the world of a creative ad agency as we explore careers in the world of advertising. Now we have with us Surbhi from Foxy Moron's team, who is going to walk us through the process of how an ad campaign is designed. Surbhi, welcome to the show.
Hi.
Why don't you start telling us about how does this all happen? Where does it begin?
Okay, so what I'll tell you is basically how we get sort of a brief from a client.
Right.
So a brief comes, we get more details, we talk about it.
Right.
Then we get the strategy team on board who starts
Right.
breaking the brief down, right? So once that starts happening, then we reach out to our research team.
Okay.
Because before we get to an insight, we need somebody who gets all the research,
Right.
starts digging conversations, gets you everything across channels, across the digital domain, right?
Right.
So that is why we have our listening team.
Okay.
They sort of get us all these conversations,
Okay.
which helps us get to the insight for the idea.
Okay.
So why
So
don't you
let's have a
speak with
word.
him?
Yes, let's have a word with him. Okay, hi. So can you just tell us a bit about what's your job all about? What are you doing over here right now?
So this stage of the planning process for digital brands is called social listening.
Okay.
Before we get into any strategy, any ideas, we first need to understand what are people talking about,
Okay.
both the industry, the brand, the competitors.
Right.
So essentially what we're doing is trying to understand the sentiments, we're trying to understand what are the common conversations that take place, what are the trends, what are the volumes, before we make any informed decisions.
So that's a constant monitoring of social activities, basically.
That's right. It's live monitoring as well as historic.
And what are the platforms that you're monitoring?
These are all social platforms across the web, right from Facebook to Twitter to Instagram to YouTube, everything.
Okay, thanks
Yeah.
for talking to us.
All right.
So right, Surbhi, so we have an idea about how, social listening happens, but
Yeah.
what next? Once you know that, what's happening, what's trending, what happens after that?
So after this comes the idea.
Okay.
So I think what a lot of people do is that they think of the idea first and do not see how they're backing it up, right? They're not closer to reality.
Right.
So once we have this in place, then you have an idea which is closer to reality and sort of paints the pretty picture, which is the correct picture for the brand.
Okay.
And that comes from strategy team.
Okay.
Once you have the idea in place, we start sort of reaching out to all our functional teams. So you have your web, then you have your video, you have your media, you have digital PR, you have everybody, even tech.
Right.
So we have some of the teams that sit out of this office and some stay out of the Bombay office.
Okay.
So I have the video team here, I have the design team here.
Right.
So design team sort of puts. So when I go to a client, I need a new look for the campaign, right? So
Right.
they sort of help me create that look, basis the brief.
So if you can just take us through something, explain us how does it happen?
That's Aaron.
Okay, hi. So can you just tell us a bit about what you're doing over here? What is this campaign or sort of image that I can see you working on?
Right now I'm making a creative for Discovery, a GIF.
Okay.
This GIF is on World Nature Conservation Day. So it's basically mentioning stuff about extinction of species and depletion of forests.
So as a graphics person, what are some of the key things that you have to always sort of keep in mind when you are developing some content for your client?
I guess the basic sense of balance. I mean, that's like a key principle when it comes to graphic designing.
Right.
So
And what about the kind of skills you need to be in your place for someone to be in your place?
skills, I mean, basic software knowledge like Photoshop, and that's like the basic software.
Right.
Apart from that, for animations, I use After Effects.
Okay.
So,
Okay. Thanks for talking. Yeah. Right, Surbhi. So what next?
So while you do have the designs in place, every brand is right now about video content.
Right.
And I think it's time we head to the video team because
Okay.
they sort of put it together for us from script writing to storyboarding to basically taking it to the
Why
client.
do you think that video content has become so important over time? Because whether it's your social media apps like Instagram,
Yeah.
Facebook, Twitter, to even TVCs, it's become so important.
I think earlier it was all about creating awareness, but now more and more, so brands just want people to engage with them.
Right.
And that's happening a lot with your a GIF, which is more interactive, a video, which is more interactive, and that's how it has become now.
So when we talk about video content, what does the video team essentially do?
So they sort of create scripts that brands create for themselves. We also look at getting content aggregators on board and tie with an AIB or a TVF, and we have a concept in mind and we sort of tie with them.
Right.
That happens, and basic edits. For example, like we had GSK on board, right? So GSK would have a TVC and we'd sort of clip and make edits out of that. I think we have a case study going on here for discovery.
Okay. Looks interesting. So can you just tell us a bit about what are you working on? And
We are basically creating case studies for different brands.
okay.
So in this we include Discovery, Horlicks, and many more like Moto and
What do you
Bira
mean by
also.
case studies?
Case studies basically we are showcasing that how campaigns did very well for us.
All right,
That's
thank you. So talking about striking a balance between what happens with the graphic team
Yeah.
and what happens with the video team,
Yeah.
like what really goes about?
It's basically as per the brief, right? It's also brief and then you realize the budget. So the client wants to maybe create a microsite. Then I sort of brief the web team. But we don't have budget for a microsite, so we're doing a canvas in Facebook that makes it easier and cheaper. Video content, so we'll do animations if we have lesser budgets. We'll do real footage when we have more budgets. So we sort of create a balance basis of brief and the budgets and sort of reach out to all our teams so that we sort of capture all domains.
And once you have the video content and everything is ready, like it's in place, then what? Is that the closing of the...
Now the deck sort of gets accumulated,
Okay.
and it's not like anything like Mad Men, but it's insane because we sometimes spend nights creating this one deck and then sort of take it, and then we sort of go pitch it and win it.
Okay, thank you
Yeah.
so much for talking
Thank
to
you.
us. Right, so that was all about how a creative ad agency works and how do they go about designing ad campaigns. And now for aspiring entrepreneurs who want to start off their own ad agencies, we have with us one of the founders of Foxy Moron who's going to share with us their journey. So we'd welcome to the show. Let's start off with understanding how has the journey been like for you. You were just 19-year-old when you started out with your co-founders, and then with just a small capital of 64,000. How was it like? And people say that you need a lot of money to start up, but how much is it true?
The agency business essentially is a services business, and it's a self-sufficient business to the extent that you hire people to work on clients' businesses. Clients pay you certain money, to cater those businesses, and that money kind of pays for people's salaries, and that money keeps the lights on and the bells ringing. Having said that, 64,000 rupees, as you said, is close to nothing. It was just a little bit of savings that we had that we kind of put into this summer project. We were conservative when we started off. Obviously started very small. There was a lot of bootstrapping involved. For the first 6 months we didn't have an office. We worked out of my bedroom. We made some money over the summer, saved up the money and put it into a small 280 square foot office. And at that point of time, we were 14 of us in a 280 square foot office.
So as a startup, how easy or tough was it for you to convince people to give you business?
The two challenges we faced are, hey, what is digital? Because in 2008, people thought digital was limited to a website, some CRM project, and a little bit of search. So what is digital? And the second challenge was, who the hell are you? Because you're a 19-year-old boys in your shorts and chappals, barely finishing your classes, cutting out of your classes in college and coming and talking to us about, spending advertising dollars and marketing dollars. As the industry kind of picked up over the first couple of years, and some global headquarters in London or Paris had some, mandate saying that it's time to put money in digital. Fortunately, there was a little bit of recall saying, those boys used to come in and ask us for business. Maybe we should call them in and give them a brief. But the second challenge about us being a startup, unheard of, no background, no agency experience, that kind of stayed with us for a while.
So how do you go about bursting that bubble, that you are a startup?
I think your work eventually ends up speaking for itself. What's happened with us is that over the last 10 years, we've not once actually picked up the phone and cold called a client. Most 99.9% of our business comes from referral business, word of mouth business.
It's quite interesting. You completed your bachelor's in law first, and thereafter you gave a complete 360-degree turnaround to your career. You specialized in skills in electronic communication and mobile app development and all. And suddenly then you land up in advertising as a career. Why this shift?
So I come from a family of lawyers. So I knew I was going to study law ever since I was old enough to decide what I wanted to do. And we started the business actually when I was 19, when I was actually in between my second and third year of management college. When we started the business, the objective was to do something in the marketing and advertising space, something in the creative and communication space. Right. And it was a punt, to be honest. No one really knew whether digital as an industry would take off, whether the agency would grow. There wasn't even an agency to start off with. Absolutely. It was an absolute gamble. I would say more than a gamble, it was a fortunate coincidence or a fortunate accident.
Let's talk a bit about the scope and challenges of being in this industry. I mean, you have bigger ad agencies out there as your competitors. So what is it like to work, when you have challengers like those outside?
The challenge always was that as the digital pie kept growing and it moved from 1% to 14% of the overall advertising pie, it always threatened the wallet share of the larger agencies. And the larger agencies kept on saying that we can upskill, we can upsell, and we can take digital under our boutique of services that we do offer to our clients as well. The second challenge obviously came from the fact that as the digital industry kind of expanded, talent acquisition became a very big problem as well, because you can't keep working with freshers straight out of college. You need mature people. You're handling large clients, you're handling large budgets. You do need people with a certain amount of branding and advertising experience. Then retaining the talent became a challenge, because when we started off, there were a handful of agencies, and today there are hundreds and hundreds of digital agencies across the country.
And how do you see the scope of being in this industry? Like, what does the growth of the industry look like at this point?
Sure. So the industry has actually grown, both in length and in breadth over the last few years. The number of advertisers that are entering this industry keeps increasing year on year as advertisers get more conscious about the fact that their audiences are online. B, in terms of what the advertisers are doing in the digital space also has increased very drastically, and slowly and steadily content has now become mainstream, and clients are investing primarily in content campaigns revolving around social, video content and production. Today clients invest a lot of money in online reputation management for customer service, etc., so on and so forth.
For someone who is an aspiring entrepreneur like you and who wants to kickstart, build their own brand, a creative ad agency, what would your advice be to them?
I think while starting out, most people look behind them, most people look at their careers, most people look at their experience, saying, what are the skills I've gained, how can I utilize those skills to build an organization? And unfortunately, the more you look at the past, you kind of live in the past, as opposed to living in the future, which is where our industry is kind of going, keeping an open eye to, what's happening tomorrow. I think the second tip is also about not falling to failure. I think while starting up, and especially with the startup boom that we've seen over the last few years in India, more startups fail than the startups that actually move forward and succeed. Yeah.
Well, that was a wonderful chat. Thank you so much for being with us on the show.
Thank you.
All right, it's time for us to slip into a short break, but don't go anywhere, because on the other side we'll continue exploring the world of advertising.